Hello and welcome to Murder Analysed, everybody. Welcome back. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, the like button, all this sort of stuff. Trying to get this ready, but yes, some of the sound is a bit funny because this mic, I think. So I have ordered a new one. Won't be long. Stick with me. We're just getting back into this. Now, today's case. As I've said for many, many years, predators, especially predators that go after children, come in many shapes, sizes, creeds and genders. And I continually over the years said that we should be just as wary as females as we are of males. And this case, and not just this case, the cases that are coming up now, constantly coming up in the news about female predators, it's just getting it's madness, really. It's just really madness, and it doesn't shock me because I've been saying it, because people don't think that women, mothers, caregivers, teachers, social workers, all these sort of people can do horrendous crimes to children, but they do. And this case, sort of just one of many that's coming up about this subject, and we need to be wary. We need to get rid of these old ideas that only predators are male against our children. This has been going on for years. All of a sudden it's highlighted. So if you've got any understanding of why we're having much more of this now, leave me a comment and explain it, because I can't. Apart from the only thing I can think about, this has been going on for so many years, and because none of us believe or want to believe that a woman can do such things, is that statistics then can't be right. It can't be right. And as these cases are coming left, right and centre now, right, not just across America, and this case is from America, but from the UK, from Europe, from all over the world, about predators that are female. And we've done many cases, and it's just highlighting again the importance of keeping your children safe, and you are the only ones that can really protect your children. And so this really should be your chance now to think, hang on a minute, should I be sending my children around to there just because she's a teacher? Should we go on play dates? I know it sounds bad to have to think like this, but this is the reality of the world we live in today.
Down the street with your red lips and funky beat, you better hold your head up to the sky.
Let's have a chat about that.
So teachers are meant to be the guardians of trust. We believe them, don't we? We believe that when we put our children in their hands, that they are going to be safe, looked after. Every day they're in that classroom for about 8 hours a day. That's what we really believe. And that's what the children in this school and the parents of this school believed. So if we think then that our children are guided in a safe direction, let alone put aside what we think these teachers are teaching some of our kids in these schools. This is about perpetrators that must do these professions to get close to children. That's the only thing I can say, because really a teacher, especially a 6th grade teacher of an around 11-year-old boy, you would think that, is it the only reason that they went into teaching in the first place? It makes you question, doesn't it? Why the motivation behind some of these perpetrators is in this profession. So in 2024 in Illinois, this trust, I suppose, was shattered when a substitute teacher, this Alley Bardfield, was arrested for exploitation of an 11-year-old student. So she was a female teacher, and one of her class students, she was teaching 11-year-olds. She was a substitute teacher, but she was a regular substitute teacher. That's what she did. She continued doing this for actually quite some time, this teaching. So what makes this case especially shocking isn't the crime itself, right? It isn't. Because the more I do and the more I read, they get less and less shocking. At first, when we first started doing these, yes, it was, but not so much now. But I suppose it's the betrayal of her own family, because this was a married woman with children. And also her family home that she abused this child in by inviting this child round for play dates. Now, I don't know if there's any rules to if teachers can have extracurricular activities in a home with their students, whether you have own children or not that are there. I don't know if that's the rule, but maybe it should be a rule that we do not allow any teacher, male or female, to associate with any child outside that school for any reason. Now, of course, because she was a female, right, predator, she had children of her own, similar age. I think one of these, her children was, to this child that she abused sexually. That's maybe why the mother's, I don't know, awareness or trust was held, because she's thinking, well, it's the teacher. She has children, going around play dates, staying overnight. You know, she's married. What did you expect, right? That's what you would expect from a decent teacher who has morals, who is not breaking the law by doing this sort of thing. She is married. She, on the outside to the world, she looks like a normal, everyday person, you know, law-abiding citizen, teacher, mother, wife, but she was an abuser. And I don't know if she's abused anyone else. That hasn't come out. She was caught by the mother of this child. And as we go through this case, it's also failures around in this area, because in this area or in this state, I have looked at many, many cases similar to this, and it's eye-opening. So the failures are on the school. The failure is definitely on the school. The mother, I think, is just like any other victim here, because she's a secondary victim of this. She believed what she was doing for her child was a good thing, to have him associating and playing with other kids, and, you know, the environment was safe and everything. Would no one in their right mind would have sent a child to someone who would be known for these sort of offences? So don't forget, this woman was a teacher. She had no criminal record at all before the police knocked on her door and arrested her for multiple charges against this child. It's a bloody shocking case, this. So let's talk about who is this Alley Bardfield. Alley Bardfield was married, mother of 3. At the time of her offence in March 2024, she was married to a construction worker. She's not married anymore. Casey Newton Barfield. Together, they were raising their children in Mount Zion, Illinois. Behind closed doors, though, this is where this woman took on a new persona. You know, let's take the mask off now and look behind the scenes of this woman. She crossed the lines, right, that no parent or community really would expect from this sort of a person. The most disturbing, I think, detail is that the abuse took place in her marital bed that she shared with her husband. Now, she was married to a construction worker, so I bet he was quite fit. She's had 3 kids, right? Shows their sex life was okay, doesn't it? So what's the attraction then of an 11-year-old child? Is it the sex or is it the control? Really, this is what you've got to look at with these sort of perverted people. What was getting her off on that? An 11-year-old child. And we've done other cases, and I've had so many comments saying, oh, he was 15, it's all right. No, it's not all right. He was underage. This boy was 11. So where do we then, if we start saying it's all right for a 15-year-old to go with a woman who was a teacher, in power over him, to the bit it's all right if it's an 11-year-old? You see, this is where the lines get twisted, right? When I see these comments and people say, well, in this country, the age limit's that. In this country, the age limit's that of consent. I don't give a shit what the age limit is. In America, the age limit is not 11. It's not 11. This was a teacher. She had power over this child. She used and abused this child. She groomed this child. You know, where do we cut it off? This does annoy me, and it always annoys me when I see comments like that, and they're from stupid people, right? Because it hasn't happened to their children yet. But this boy was damaged. Just because it's a female on a child means no different than if it was a male predator on a child. There would be no difference. This boy was 11, well under the age of consent. Well under the age of actually understanding about what is going on. This is what's really wrong here in these cases. That people seem to want to justify, oh, she's a woman, she's a teacher, she made a mistake. I mean, you listen, some of the comments, you'll see it, right? Some of the emails I get, you'll see it. It doesn't matter the age of the child. If that law in that country says that child is 18, 16, 15, whatever, what them laws say it is, that's what it is. That's what the age is. But 11, come on. Now, I don't want to see one comment on here about, oh, you know, lucky him. Lucky him. And this is what we're having. So as we go through this case, think about this, because comments like that, it's an insult to that child, right? It's an insult to the laws of your country. You're saying, by joking and saying, oh, yeah, good for him because it was a boy. No. Doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. The damage is still the same. And we'll go over the psychological damage of this child after. So the crime, the victim was in the 6th grade in her class. The exploitation began slowly, inviting the boy for play dates. Special attention was sort of, in class, or, giving him special attention. Even then, where it was coming to where he was asked to stay overnight in this woman's property because people trusted her, because she had other children, she was a mother, upstanding community member, married. I mean, God, the people this woman has hurt, let alone the child that she's abused. Her own children will have to live with this for the rest of her life. And her husband finding out at a knock on the door from the police that your wife has been abusing an 11-year-old child in your bed. I mean, Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? So in March 2024, getting back to this case, after one of the visits that this boy had around, and listen, for legal purposes, we're not going to mention this boy's name, nor we couldn't anyway, and nor would I, right? He's got a life that he's got to lead. So anyway, March 2024, after one of these visits, this boy's mother starts to notice changes in him. Right, typical sign of abuse, bit of withdrawal, not, acting out, these sort of things. And she got really suspicious because she's thinking, well, to tell you the truth, she probably thought it was her husband, right? Never probably crossed her mind that it was the actual female, the woman, right? Because people don't seem to perceive a predator as a female. Change your mindset here. So these text messages, she was horrified, right, when she went through his phone. She went through the phone. There was text messages and photos exchanging between Bardfield and her son. There was a CashApp payment totaling $700 used to manipulate and sort of bind the child into this secrecy. So it's a big secret. Because these little paedophiles or PDFs love a secret. It's just between me and you. Don't say anything. You're special. I'm going to give you, this $700 was over a period of time. You know, buy yourself something. Typical grooming going on here with an 11-year-old child. But as you see, the grooming becomes from, as I always say with grooming is the process. The abuse is the act. So the child might enjoy the process because they don't really realise what's going on. You know, he's the teacher's favourite, teacher's pet. She's giving him money. Come and stay around at mine. You're so good. You're so nice. All of a sudden, that grooming process turns into acts. Let me touch you. You touch me. While my other kids are in bed or having a little nap or playing in the garden, you come upstairs with me. That's the act. And then the child feels, he knows, or they know, that it's not right. They feel it's not right, the uncomfortableness, that feeling. But you have an adult now, a teacher, someone who has power over you, someone in charge of you, someone you trust, you believe. Be careful. Now starts the abuse. So what do you do? As an 11-year-old child, what do? You do nothing. You start to withdraw. You start to act out. Because you can't tell. Because it's a secret. Their little secret. She's giving me money to keep me quiet. Not that he's spending it, because he's 11. If he spends it, his mother's going to notice. His mother noticed from his change in behaviour. That's how she noticed. And that was it for this woman. So, the investigation, the police acted quickly in this. With the cooperation of the boy's mother, they set up a sting operation. Calls and text messages were recorded in which Bardfield incriminated herself throughout them texts, phone calls and video calls that was made. She was arrested in April 2024 at her home. What a bloody shock for her that was. And now I can show you the clip of that in this Mount Zion. During questioning, she admitted that she had a relationship, but she tried to blame the child for the acts of abuse against him, saying that he wanted her to do it. He's 11, right? So that's, and then she also confessed to sending him the images, lots of different images of herself in positions, and sending the money, right? So listen, she's banged to rights, right? They've got her. So after the arrest, Barfield was fired from this public school in September 2025, and she pleaded guilty to predatory criminal assault of a child. The prosecution wanted to prosecute her, and they pushed for 40-year sentence. Fair enough, just love America justice. You know, here he'd get a year, she'd get a year, if that, be out in, 3 months? Anyway, 40-year sentence. But the judge opted for the 10 years in prison. Barfield was also ordered to register as an offender for life, and will also face 3 years to life of supervised sort of release once she leaves prison. She's going to have a good time in prison. So, why the 10 years? When you could have given her 40. She'd done a deal with the prosecution, and the parents of the child agreed to that because they didn't want their child to go in front of the prosecution team and defend, you know, to try and defend himself, even though the evidence was all there. So to save the child, right, you've got to think this child is 11 years old. He's been through an awful lot. He's quite damaged, to tell you the truth. His life will never be the same again. As I said, it makes no difference to whether the perpetrator is a male or a female. This was an 11-year-old child. So his parents believed that it wasn't right for him to go to court and have to give evidence under that sort of situation. So they allowed her to do the deal for the 10 years. Now, whether you think that's right or wrong, I'd like you to tell me in the comments. I sort of agree with it because we all know now what she is. She will never be able to teach again. She's lost the rights to her children. She is now divorced. The husband wants nothing to do with her. She will never be able to go near another child again. No one will ever believe her because, okay, not everyone watches the news and stuff, but a lot of people watch YouTube and a lot of people watch crime shows, and that's why we try and highlight these cases, so for you to be aware of people like this. So this Alley Bardfield will do 10 years in an American prison as a PDF. Not looking good for her. She will then come out and have to serve time supervised and never ever probably work again, right? Where this then leaves that child to get on with his life, the counselling he's going to need and everything else he's going to need, and his family and him can start again. So that was a reason. But yes, this woman could have got up to 40 years. So if she hadn't have done the deal, that's what she would have been looking at. And to tell you the truth, right, she was lucky, I think, because some victims and some victims' parents would have pushed. But is it doing the right thing for the child? Putting them through all this extra stress when she's admitted it. It saves the child the trial process, and it also makes her guilty. 10 years hard time for this woman. She's lost everything. She's lost everything. But this child can recover. So the victim's family has now filed a lawsuit against Barfield School District and the school board. Now they allege, this is what I'm saying, when I was investigating this case I was looking at all these different cases in this district, right? So the district fostered a climate of neglect, this is what they're saying, that allowed misconduct to occur. I agree, because as I said to you in the beginning, I do not believe that any teacher in any school, in any area, should have extracurricular activities, you know, even legal ones, right, or honest, you know, unharmful ones, with any child that they're teaching, right? And this should have been clearly stated in part of their school rules, if you want to call it that, and others. So the staff vowed to receive the required training under Illinois law. Now this is Erin's law, which mandates that the education on recognising and reporting child abuse. Now, I'm sure in this school there was another teacher also, or in this district, very close to this, that was also being looked at and arrested, I think, for having relations with another child. I think I've got it right. Allegedly, I'm going to say. So the lawsuit even mentions other instances. In winter 2024, 2 school employees allegedly engaged in appropriate activity on school property during working hours. They had sexual intercourse on the school grounds. I mean, these are the sort of teachers in this place. Now, you know, I think it was in school time, right, as well. So that's just one. Related cases around this area. So Barfield's case wasn't entirely isolated across Illinois. Other educators have been charged in recent years. We've had Christina Formanelli from Downers Grove teacher, and she coached and was accused of exploiting a 15-year-old student, dozens of times, and she's facing 52 charges, including grooming and aggravated assault. In Chicago Public School, lawsuits have been revealed misconduct by both male and female staff, highlighting systematic failures in the larger districts in the state. These cases were underscored by the need for strict enforcement training and oversight and reporting the standards in the school. As I say, there are a lot of cases in this area. Now, not all cases like this are reported. The school usually deal with it if it's sort of not bad. There's sort of incidents the school will say, okay, you need to resign, that sort of thing, and agree with the parents and stuff. But this isn't the only district, right? This is just one because these cases are highlighted. This is not the only district that all this is going on. There's a lot going on. But when you talk about this school and you've got other schools in this district with issues, right? I mean, the lawsuit, which isn't a criminal lawsuit, it's a civil lawsuit that the family are taking out. I would also, because this is wrong what was going on here, and if there was others, even in the area or whatever, and there's some other stuff coming up, it is best that they get rid of the shit now, clear it, right? Any teacher that has had any allegation, any teacher that has done any wrongdoing, any teachers that think it's appropriate to have sexual intercourse in school grounds, in school time, is an absolute disgrace, and they should be sacked instantly, right? It is unacceptable. It's unacceptable behaviour, as it is unacceptable and unlawful, right? Because this child couldn't give her a consent at 11 years old to have any intercourse with this woman. He cannot consent, and for her to try and say that this child was the one that wanted it, he pushed for it, he just wanted it, it was his fault, that's what she tried to say at first. I mean, she should have got 40 years. I'd like to know what you've got to say about that. When we have predators like this that seem to be great in society, married, happy, it's a cover. Take the mask off, and this is what's underneath these vile, vile people. They're very good. They're very good, these sort of predators. They're very good at manipulation, role play. I mean, her life was just a role play. She's done everything right, hasn't she? Gone to college, got the degree, gone to teaching, married, children. It's just a role play for what's really in her. And that's to abuse children as young as 11. I think if you've been affected by anything like these discussions that we've talked about today, if you feel your child has been in any way abused by anyone, you should report it. If you suspect grooming or abuse, there's helplines out there for you. In the US, you can call Child Help National Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453. In the UK, support for victims is also available 24/7 at 0808 1689 111. In Australia, the Victim Support Service can be reached on 1-800-633-063. Cases like Alley Bardfield remind us that the abuse, and it is an abuse the worst kind, hides in plain sight. Because who suspected her? His mother didn't. The school really didn't. They may have breached their rules in some way by not educating, but shouldn't you? Do you really need to be educated as a teacher for what is morally wrong? What is legally wrong? What your responsibility should be to your students, to your school, to your community. You know, if I was this school, I would counter-sue Bardfield. Because really, training's one thing, but this shouldn't need to be trained into someone right and wrong shouldn't be trained, right? You should already know, shouldn't you? Let's have a look now at the profile. So she's a wife and mother, right? She was. I'm going to say it was because she was. Outwardly presented as a family woman. Married, raising 3 children, working as a substitute teacher, all the good stuff in life, maintaining the appearance of stability, being normal in public, while concealing a secret life and really crossing them boundaries and enjoying crossing them boundaries. It's a double life that points to the compartmentalization. She separates these roles, right? It's very hard to do because I've been a teacher and oh my God, to even think about something like that is terrible. But usually you come home, teaching is part of your life, right? Because you do your teaching, then you've got to get your lessons ready and everything ready for the next weeks. And in law, when you're teaching law and stuff, you have to write all the stuff. Now this woman was a substitute teacher, so a lot of her lesson plans and stuff like that would have already been done for her. But there would have still been marking and there would still been all this sort of stuff. So you sort of, you separate it. But then you have a family member now. You have 3 children of your own. You've got a husband, a life. She seemed to be able to hide all that seediness, that depravity from her family very easily. And when the police knocked at that door, you can see on her face the shock, the horror of being caught. Because she didn't believe she would be. Listen, many of them don't. So her traits were, she was manipulative and deceptive. The secret, keep my secret, let's have a secret. She was able to groom and maintain this secrecy, even within her own household. Very difficult to do. Risk-taking, engaging in misconduct in her own marital home. She took this boy to her marital bed, this 11-year-old, indicating that this recklessness, this wanting to, the thrill of not getting caught. Look at me, I can get away with this. You don't know. You don't know what's happening. I'm talking about the husband, as he's coming in from a hard day's work, and you just abused an 11-year-old kid in his bed, and then you're probably taking him to bed and sleeping with him too. And then thinking about the 11-year-old because of how you got off on it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just about the abuse to these people. It's about the power. It's about having that thrill. What a life. Anyway, narcissistic tendencies, of course, she is seeking validation and control, and really even at the expense of her own family. She's just destroyed many, many lives. So what was their motivation? When I do these cases, I like to look at their motivation, what drives them. What drives them to do these sort of acts. Possible need for validation or escape from her personal dissatisfaction, her marriage or her family life. So she's pissed off of being married. Haven't we all at some point? Do you know what I mean? Really, been pissed off with life. God, I need some validation in my life, so I'm just going to go and abuse a kid. Anyway, exploitation, the power, right, of this dynamic. Her role as a teacher, using her status and the trust to create this opportunity. She was a manipulator, as all these paedophiles and offenders like this are. They are manipulators. The financial grooming, $700 in payments, also reveal control and attempts to buy the silence and loyalty. Well, it didn't work because really the kid couldn't even spend the $700 because he's too young. The mother would have clocked on like instantly. Impact of the family role, marriage destroyed. Absolutely. Husband left soon after the arrest. I bet he ran out of there, mate. I bet he did. I bet he ran out of that bloody town. And how you got to face a whole community when your wife has just done this to an 11-year-old child. Your poor kids in the same bloody school. If they want to destroy their own lives, fine. Do something else. Then you want to destroy an 11-year-old. You've done that, and the abuse on this child was terrible. But you've also destroyed your own children's lives and your husband's lives. He was going to work to keep you in your life you had. to keep up appearances. Anyway, self-destructive behaviour. Well, we can see she was self-destructive, can't we? Really? I mean, you may as well just give it all up, love. Do you know what I mean? Really, to do something like this. Self-destruction is, I don't know, you've made yourself in a dangerous position going into prison for these sort of offences. And even when you come out, you're going to have no one. No one. Anyway, psychological theme. So they're saying, when you put her in, right, into what I use, cognitive disorders, living as a giver for her own children while harming other children outside her home or in the marital bed. Denial and blame shifting. She did, in the interview, blame the child. She claimed he initiated it, the advances showing, refusal, and this to take full responsibility. 11. He chased you. It was his fault. And forensic awareness. Some awareness, I think, because she wanted to keep it secret. So she knows it's wrong. Anytime you say, is there mental health issues, is there this? When people tell you to shh, keep it quiet. They give you payments, private message you. And I think she was a little bit stupid because she left all the digital stuff, information that literally took this woman down. So you call yourself a teacher. I don't know what education these teachers have these days, but obviously, luckily for us, she weren't that great. So anyway, Alley fits the profile of a female offender who conceals misconduct behind the mask of a wife, mother and trusted educator. So her whole profile, right? She's a female offender, conceals the misconduct behind the mask of a real life mother and trusted educator. Her behaviour suggests that the manipulation, poor impulse control, narcissistic need for devastating consequences for her marriage, children and victim and the community. She didn't give a shit about any of them. That's really what it comes down to. Typical narcissist. Let me just highlight quickly about Erin's Law. Now, Erin's Law is a US law and it's named after Erin Marin. Now, a survivor of child abuse from Illinois who became an activist. The law requires that all public schools implement age-appropriate programs to educate students about safe and unsafe touches. Could have been handy in this case. Safe and unsafe secrets, how to recognise grooming behaviour, how to tell a trusted adult if something is wrong. Now, when you have a teacher who is meant to be your trusted adult abusing you, where were the safeguards for this young kid to go anywhere else within that school and report this abuse? And I think this is what the lawsuit is going to be about, because it's under Erin's Law that this lawsuit against her, the civil lawsuit now against her and the school, or against the school, is sort of taking precedence over that, because they're saying under this law, this school did not protect this child. And if they're not protecting that child, that means they're not protecting any other child within the school. So it's really important, and I'll keep watching for the outcome of this case. It's a civil case. They could settle out of court. That means there won't be anything, but hopefully there will be. And this Erin's Law was 2011 that was passed. So just before I close this case, we need to look at the possible psychological issues after an abuse by this trusted adult. So all abuses will leave some psychological and physical impact on a child. But when we're talking about an impact like this from a trusted adult, so he will have for the rest of his life difficult trusting adults, authority figures, or even his peers. Fear of betrayal may pull away from friends and family because he doesn't really understand now what it's meant to be. Risk of forming unhealthy or independent relationships later. So this could carry on for this child without the proper help, to where he may not be able to form a proper relationship himself because of the trust issues that he's now had. So his emotional health, anxiety and depression are one of the most common after this sort of abuse. Feelings of shame, guilt or self-blame, even though the child was never at fault. Emotional numbness or detachment and as a coping strategy. You've got to think, he is 11, he doesn't understand what really happened to him. He was abused in the worst way, physically and emotionally, by the grooming and the abuse. So now that's over, his teacher's gone, everyone knows about it, the embarrassment comes in. Is the guilt there? Does he think, is it my fault? Because don't forget, she was lovely to him. She cared for him at first in that grooming part. Anyway, it's very difficult for some of these children. Behavioural changes, withdrawal from normal activities or sudden personality shifts. He was already having that. And that's why his mother picked up on that there was something wrong. Because of the change came from where the grooming process ends for him to where the actual physical harm then starts to come, and that was already changed, and that will now become his way, I suppose, of coping for a while until he understands what really went on, and this is why therapy is very good. Increased, I suppose, secrecy in himself, mood swings, irritability, because he's thinking how it's embarrassing for any child, it's embarrassing for anyone that has been abused to talk about it. That's why many don't. But I suggest you do. If you've been abused, I suggest you do talk about it. You've got nothing to be embarrassed about. This emotional numbness, as I said, it's difficult, isn't it, when you have a child that doesn't really understand what's going on. So their emotion, plus because now he's becoming a teenager soon, and the hormones are going to go everywhere with any normal teenager. And this child is still normal. He's just had issues now with what he shouldn't have had to deal with at such a young age. So now he's got to work through them as well as the teenage hormones. Very difficult time for this child. So you've got a child of 11, and we're talking about this specific case here with this child's psychological development. Not all of this may happen to him, but some will. Or at some stage, they will come out at different times. When you think about what happened to this child and where this happened to this child, it's in his school. Not just in a school where, okay, she was trusted and everything else. It was school, a place where you learn. Where you should be encouraged to learn. Where they want you to feel like you are embracing and understanding what you want to do for your future. Right? Critical time for this lad. Exams and different stuff like that as he's coming up. So now he's going to have problems concentrating at school. Who knows? Who's looking at me? Do they know? What do they think? That sort of thing, right? Plus, it's also the faults of, and he would have moved schools and whatever, but it's still the same environment that the abuse started for him at. The grooming started. Is there someone else going to groom me? This is what you have to think from a child's point of view. What is going on in his child's mind. There will be a decline in his academic performance. He will have nightmares, flashbacks, or intrusive memory and the faults that come with that. Because now he understands what's happened to him is wrong. Right? Before he didn't really know, he felt it was. That's why his whole moods were changing. His personality was changing. As that grooming process ends, to where the, attack, the actual act happens of that abuse, he changed. So, the nightmares then are real. Because now he knows it was wrong. He knows he's been abused. He feels worthless in himself probably because of what's happened to him, because most people that abuse do, even though he had nothing to do with that, right? That was her choice to abuse him. She was the adult. But children look at things in a different way. They look at it in a different way. And this is the whole point of these cases. If you have been abused, you must talk about it. You must not blame yourself. Come forward. You know, so many people to help you out there. Just talk about it. So the long-term risks, I suppose, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is probably unlikely for this lad. Ongoing mental health issues into adulthood. Well, you've only got to look at the statistics on that, haven't you? And this is whether it's a female predator or a male predator, right? This is a real issue here of what we are doing to our children in their later lives, right? It's a real issue. High likelihood of substance misuse or as a way to self-smooth. Now, I understand this. I do, because I see so many people, I talk to so many people that either self-medicate or they they drink or do drugs to hide the pain, to try and give them that couple of minutes of relief from what's going on in their mind, right? Hopefully this child won't get to that point. Hopefully this child will have counselling and everything else this child needs to make sure that he doesn't get to any of these points. But he will need long-term help to get over this. He really will. So, as I've said, not every child will form these long-term issues. The outcome depends on how quickly the abuse was identified and stopped, the support system, loving parents, therapy and a safe environment, which I believe his parents are absolutely a safe environment for him. His mother protected him, and you can't blame any parent for trusting the teacher and everything else. And as I said, this married woman, this persona that she puts out to the world, but this is what I am, but this is what I do. No one saw through this woman. No one. And luckily for this mother of this child, she made sure that she was not going to have any of it, and she stopped it. And so did the police. Very, very quickly, this was stopped when they found out. It's so important that the ongoing care for any person that has been abused in this way, no matter what age, to tell the truth. But young children and 11-year-olds like this deserve to be safe. They deserve to be safe in their environments that we place them in, and the laws place them in to tell the truth. The law wants you to send your children to school. It wants you to, because we believe that that is the best thing for our children, which in most cases it is. It is. But if we now are seeing more and more of these cases coming out, it makes us as parents and you as parents question. And that's a good thing to question. It's a good thing to go in to the school and say, okay, what's the protocol for this? What happens with this? Read up on the schools that your children are going to. And as I said before, I do not believe that any teacher in any way should have any contact with any child outside of that school. Now, that's not saying that this abuse didn't happen inside the school as well. It did, but not as the grooming part did, right? And certain touches and things in the school did. But it would have been less harmful if the child would have understood that this is not acceptable, right? And having somewhere else for that child to go and talk about stuff. But the minute that this woman was allowed to take this child out of the school grounds, right, on the ruse that she was a mother and a family and, you know, come around on play dates, and that's why the thumbnail says it. It was on play dates that she did this with her own children in the house. So, I don't believe in any teacher or anyone in authority that should be left alone at any point with a child, when the teacher should only be teaching them in school, certainly not having them in their home. And I don't care who you are, man or female, right? That should be the rule. That should be the rule. And I think with the laws that are, all these cases and certain laws that are coming out now, because we have seen many of these cases of female predators, so many, I can't believe it. I can't believe how bad some are. Some are really bad, right? Just as bad as the male predators. It's shocking. But these people think they can get away with it because people do not really comprehend that females can be predators. They are. They are. So anyway, thank you for watching. Till next time. Bye bye.